ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of TC Sports. I am the substitute host for tonight alongside my good buddy, the Phil Fatman. Phil, how we doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful, Aaron. How are you doing?
Not too bad, can't complain. Unfortunately, Jacob Butson and Andrew Schultz cannot be here with us as they've got stuff going on. Understandable. We got you, fellas. We will take over for the night. So, Phil, describe one word that makes you feel about football season. Happy, sad, what is it?
I really don't know. The word I would describe it as is probably crazy. As far as even in college and both college and NFL, I both had really crazy seasons. You know, you've had teams that were supposed to be bottom beating teams that were supposed to be top, and it's just been so crazy. I honestly love this season, and both college and NFL teams are both just so interesting this year, and I think it's a lot of the concepts they've been putting in over the years. They have definitely, all these extra additions to just everything is really starting to make football even more interesting than it already was. So,
All right. I guess the word I'd use is intriguing. Kind of what you said, Phil. You took the words right out of my mouth there. This has been definitely a chaotic season. This has been one of a lot of surprises, a lot of disappointments so far, at least. It is very early. It is only, we're at the end of September already, but it is still very early, but it is going to go by very, very fast. So for all those football fans out there, enjoy it while it's still here because we will be depressed come February, the day after the Super Bowl. So anyways, with all that being said,
hold on. Hey, the XFL starts the day after. Hold on now. We still have minor league football. I'm kidding.
Look, if you're into the XFL, hey, cool. It's just not my cup of tea. What can I say? All right. With all that being out of the way, let's go ahead and just run through what happened this past week in college football. It was kind of more the same. It was not as crazy as week 3 or the past 2 weeks, honestly, but we definitely had some really good games. We had Florida State and Clemson. That was Florida State's first time beating Clemson in I couldn't tell you how many years. Like, that was a big, big, big win for that program. So shout out to Jordan Travis and the fellas down in Florida State for getting it done. Going in, wait, were they in Clemson? Wait, I'm checking. Hold on. Shout out to Jordan Travis and the fellas for going into Death Valley and beating the Tigers. You know, I'm really excited about this Florida State Seminoles team. And then we had probably one of the biggest blowouts this weekend. We all know what this is. I guess Colorado made it personal for Oregon because they got absolutely schmacked on Saturday, 42-6. And for those of you who watched Dan, I don't know the guy's name actually, the Oregon's head coach, his pregame speech, they're playing for wins. Colorado's playing for clicks, and clearly it showed that this past Saturday. I think Colorado's going to be just fine. All right, let's all relax. They've already had a better season than they did last year. They won 1 game last year. They have already had 3 wins this year. You know, they could lose out the rest of the year, and it would still be a successful season for that program, in my opinion, at least. And then trying to see what else we had. There were definitely how could I forget this? You know, being from Ohio State and Notre Dame, they dueled it out down at South Bend on Saturday, and Ryan Day. Let's just say I'm going to stay completely neutral on this because I know our 2 good friends are Michigan fans, and they would have a lot more to say about this than I would. But that was an interesting choice of words, and you know what? You do you, man. You do you. And honestly, that's about it for all the big college games we had this weekend. I would talk about UC and Oklahoma, but
I would say a couple other close games that we had. Not really, too terribly large, but we did have that Iowa and Penn State game. Iowa is traditionally usually a pretty well put together team, and to see them get shut out by Penn State really just speaks for how well Penn State really is showing this.
Yeah, and I also forgot to mention. Thank you for bringing this up, Phil. Arkansas and LSU had themselves in duel on Saturday. Like that was a really really good game. The final score I believe was 31-30 or yeah, 31-34. LSU pulled it out by 3. So maybe the Tigers are going to pull it together. The SEC this year is just extremely wide open because you got, Alabama, they're not looking too good, and then Georgia, I mean, they've looked shaky, but I think they'll end up playing the SEC championship this year. That's just my opinion though.
It's gonna be pretty crazy next year as well. I mean, we have isn't Oklahoma joining the SEC if I'm correct?
Yeah, Oklahoma
Yep.
and Texas, and
Yep.
then I believe I'm trying to think. I know. Well, I should know this. You think I would, but the Big Ten's actually gaining some new friends as well. UCLA, USC. I think Oregon is. Um, I'm not too sure who else, but I know those are like the headliners.
Oh yeah.
So looking ahead to next year, which it's way too early to be doing that, but it's going to be interesting.
Yep.
Anything else to add, Phil?
I think that's about all I've got to cover for last week. Let's head on over to next week's games.
All right. So next week we got a lot of good games this upcoming week. We have obviously one of the bigger headlines, USC and Colorado thrown down in Boulder. Big new kickoff's going to be there. And USC is 21.5-point favorites. My goodness. Yeah, they'll cover and then some. I hate to say that. And then we got Kansas and Texas throwing down at 3:30. We got Utah and Oregon State playing. It's not Thursday, Friday night. I thought it was Thursday night for whatever. And then what else do we got? Notre
Another
Dame and
close game. Yeah,
oh
for Notre Dame and
Notre
Duke. I
Dame
was
and
about to
Duke.
say the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Duke is probably been one of the bigger surprises this year, in my opinion. Like I knew they were good last year, but my God, they made I still can't get over that statement when they had week 1 against Clemson. Like that was just they shocked the nation with that one. And Notre Dame, we'll see if they can bounce back from losing to Ohio State because that definitely that had to have been a tough loss. But good teams will find a way to bounce back from those tough losses, and that's just what I've seen through my time watching college football. But looking at the rest of these games, some of them could be good. LSU and Ole Miss is playing. Ole Miss tough loss against Bama. I think these are must-win games for both teams in order to stay alive in the conference championship race. Obviously, I could be wrong about that, and they could both be in different divisions, but I stand by what I said about being in the race for the conference championship. Now, are they in the same division? Probably not, but who knows? That's just my luck with getting stuff right. Phil, you got anything to add to that?
I really don't have much to add to that. I think we'll just look at next week and we'll see what kind of upsets we see on Saturday. I know normally I'm out on Saturday, so I don't get to catch too much football, but this weekend I actually have some time off Saturday, so I'll probably watch a few more games than I normally do. So it should be a great weekend to watch these games.
It's going to be a great weekend for football in general. I'm very confident. And speaking of football, let's move on to the NFL. Phil, what did we think about last week?
Woo! Miami Dolphins. Like I knew they were going to be great. I knew that they were going to be great this year, especially with Tua, all healthy. Same thing goes for San Francisco. Dang. both of these teams, I would easily say are at least going to be in the playoffs, if not the two teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl. Honestly, I can't think of any better teams at the moment. I mean, every other major team has had some big losses. The Chiefs have had big losses. The Bills have had a big loss. The Bengals don't even. I mean, they came back this week, but don't even get them put into that.
Not yet.
You
Not
know,
yet.
don't put them into that category as they're going to the Super Bowl this year because they're not even looking that well. I mean,
Granted,
there's the Cowboys, the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles look great. Don't get me wrong, but then you have the Cowboys that lost to the Cardinals. I mean, nobody in a million years could have guessed the number one defense, or probably one of the best defenses, was going to lose to essentially one of the teams that were supposed to be bottom of the barrel this year. So
and Phil, just to add on to that, I know it's the Cardinals, and no one's really going to talk about them, but I just want to acknowledge how good of a coach Jonathan Gannon is going to turn out to be, because
yeah,
the fact that he has this roster right now without their star quarterback, Kyler Murray, who, well, I don't know if he's a star necessarily, but he's better than, who they have playing QB right now. Like, the fact that he's got this roster fighting week in and week out. Like, yeah, they've lost 2 games, but that's been by combined maybe 10 or so points. I could be wrong about that, but like, they've lost some really close games so far. Do I think it lasts? I don't know, because it is early in the season and a lot of teams, they're still trying to find their rhythm. Like, look at the Bengals, for example. They kind of got back into their rhythm, but I digress with all that.
yeah. James Conner, by the way, is going to turn out to be probably one of the best running backs in the league. Um, Honestly, he looks great. I was watching that game on Sunday, and I normally have it in multi-screen, but I was like, no other games matter. I gotta put this game on because this is absolutely crazy. I think his name's James Conner, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think so.
he's been in the league for a while, but he's a dang good running back. Like, you're not wrong about that, Phil.
No, yeah, he
He's
was
been
killing
productive.
it. I would say he was probably one of the largest beneficiaries in playing into that Cowboys game.
Oh yeah, and well, all right. So, what was one of the other games that interested you this past week? Like, what was your favorite game?
Um, there's a lot of games that interested me. But I'm gonna go on a limb here on a game that I wasn't really seeing as being this interesting. The Colts Raven game was absolutely crazy. Ravens. Most people would probably put them in their top 10, if not top 15 teams. Um, Honestly, I was kind of surprised. Now, I did that one field goal Tucker did miss was the only reason they lost this game. And that's not any fault to Tucker, as they should have gotten it farther down,
Mm-hmm.
and gotten him in a better field goal range. But really, that game really came down to the kickers. Really, that's where we saw the kickers shine. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen an NFL with this many good kickers in it. Aaron. I mean, Matt Gay, he was absolutely destroying it. I think all three of his were over 50 that he made as far as field goals go last weekend.
Oh yeah.
All four of them. So huge props out to Matt Gay. That was such a interesting game to see, especially when the Colts were not supposed to be anywhere good this year, and to see them beat a team that was supposed to be a powerhouse this year, like the Ravens, was absolutely crazy. And props to Matt Kay.
You know what the funny thing is about that, Phil? Indy was playing with their backup running back and quarterback, because Anthony Richardson, he's out with a concussion, and Jonathan Taylor's been on the pup list, so he won't be able to come back till this week. So if the Colts, if they get it figured out, like play a complete game, with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor back there, that run game at the very least is going to be deadly. But I gotta take the time to talk about this game because it broke my heart. I think Phil, you know exactly what game I'm about to talk about.
I know exactly
Um,
what game.
Chargers Vikings. Kirk Cousins. And I know I put the game on you mainly. Like I blame the game on you mainly, but honestly, it was a bad game all around. There were penalties, miscues, terrible defense. Like Brandon Staley, the head coach for the Chargers, he tried to give you this game. Like he tried to give you guys this game by going for it on fourth down in their own territory, and they did not convert it on fourth. The Vikings had great field position. They converted a I want to say fourth and 10. There's I want to say roughly 30 seconds on the clock, and you have no timeouts left. What does Kirk do? Just stand there. What does the entire team do, actually? Just stands there like a deer in headlights. Didn't know what to do. And instead of, like, I'm sorry, you're a veteran quarterback. You have been in the NFL for, I want to say, since 2012. So 12 years. Like, this is your 12th year in the NFL. And your first instinct is to not get your offense down on the ball, spike it, and stop the clock. No. That's not what you did. You got the offense to the ball right as clock was about to expire. I think there was maybe 10 seconds left when they finally got on it. And then you rush a play. You throw, honestly, an absolute dot to TJ Hawkinson that just bounced off him. And the Chargers intercept the ball. Game over. Like that first, the clock management was not there. Chargers, fire Brandon Staley, and you guys are going to be going in, the right direction. But I could go on and on.
I mean, to be honest, right now, like I feel as though Kirk Cousins is less respected than Zach Wilson. I would go about that far, and everybody knows that Zach Wilson isn't even their quarterback. He is just a figment of everyone's imagination.
At least the Jets fans. And speaking of the Jets, Phil, what the hell do the Jets do at quarterback? Like, there's just that team was clearly just built for Aaron Rodgers, and unfortunately, what happened in Week 1, that was unfortunate, but it's football. Injuries are going to happen. They can bite anybody.
I think that there's a lot of quarterbacks, and I'm not just talking straight up starters that they could use to replace Zach Wilson. There's a lot of fresh ones straight out of college that I know for a fact are not, the main quarterbacks for these teams, or, maybe not have even gotten drafted and are on these teams. They're on people's practice squads. I would say you're almost better off starting with some new, young, fresh face and getting him in there, and instead of keep trying, because I know that they've been trying to reach out to all these old quarterbacks, and that's the problem. And I tried to address this many times. These old quarterbacks and people who are veterans, of course, they know what they're doing. I'm not going to deny that. But they are very much, not up to their prime. I know that we saw last week with the, not the Saints Packers. He got traded from the Saints. What am I looking for? I'm looking for Panthers Seahawks game. Our good old boy from the Bengals, he played, and he played pretty dang well, really for his age. I didn't realize he's 28th in passing yards for quarterbacks of all time.
All time?
All time. I
Wow.
did not realize that. And I was like, they just pulled up that stat in the middle of the game, and I was like, really? Him? I did not expect Andy Dalton to be that high. But, I feel as though that they do have a hole, and they can either fill it with someone new and good for a franchise, kind of like how Bryce Young is doing for the Panthers. There's a lot of young quarterbacks out there even Brock Purdy, that are doing a great job. I think that they could either go with someone like that and try to, keep their money going so that way they can get even more, kind of like how San Francisco has right now. And the uh, the Chiefs, they have weapons on the fields. Same thing goes for the Dolphins. They all have weapons, and they're all these young athletes. And I think it'd behoove them to get a young quarterback in, fresh, give him a cheap contract, and do the same thing they're doing with Brock Purdy. You know, make him better, and within a couple years, like we saw, the Dolphins were not that good of a team as they are this year. 2 years ago. They're not
Yeah,
anywhere near
yeah.
what they were a few years ago. So I think if they started to get more young players in, the Jets are definitely going to look a lot better. But I feel like right now they don't really have much going for them. So that's just my 2 cents on them. But honestly, I think their season's kind of over, unless they find somebody who can actually take charge of the team and is able to be that person that Joe Burrow was for the Bengals. They just need a leader right now, and they don't have anyone. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, while we're on the subject of Jets QBs, I'm this is my idea for the Jets. At least maybe in like, well, you might want to think about making this move as soon as possible. But we talk about Kirk Cousins, how he's leading the league in passing yards. He's putting up all these amazing stats, and the Vikings are 0-3. I think the Jets should call up the Vikings asking, "Hey, how much is Kirk Cousins? Or not how much, but what would we have to give up for Kirk Cousins? Because it'd be basically a 1 year rental because he's going to be a free agent next year and he's auditioning for the rest of the NFL. Like, hey, I can still play. You should give me a contract. I'm not saying like Joe Burrow money, Patrick Mahomes money, Aaron Rodgers money, but just for this year until Aaron Rodgers is able to come back, which he's not coming back for the playoffs because the Jets aren't making it as of right now. And like just call up Minnesota, see what the asking price is for Kirk Cousins because honestly, you might as well just swing for the fences once again at this point. That team is way too talented to not make the playoffs this year. But with all that being said, Phil, what are 2 games that you're looking forward to in week 4?
Definitely am going to be looking at that Dolphins Bills game. That is going to be a very, very, very exciting game. Um, and I'm also going to be looking forward to that Ravens Brown game. I know the Ravens don't have the best offense at the moment, but they're getting there. But then you have the Browns, who have one of the best defenses in the league. Um, you know, against the Baltimore Ravens. And then that, of course, the Dolphins Bill games, you got the number 1 offense in the league versus the number 1 defense in the league. So it'll definitely be probably one of the best games of the year.
Okay. Um so I guess the 2 games that I'm looking forward to, ironically, and I don't know why I'm going to put myself through this torture, but I am, are the Broncos Bears because that game's either going to be a shootout of bad teams with bad defenses or it's going to be a field goal slugfest because no one can, move the ball down the field correctly. And then a game that I actually want to see, it's on here, is the Raiders Chargers because when those teams get together to play, it is always either the Chargers choke or the Raiders choke, but it is always a really, really good game before all that happens. And I always enjoy when those 2 teams are playing together. But that was just me wanting to be different. Obviously, the Vikings play the Panthers, first tank bowl of the season, I think. probably. And I'm probably not going to watch that game. But we also, Thursday night on Amazon Prime, we have the Lions at the Packers. And I can't wait to watch that. Andrew, I know you're looking forward to that. Butson, I know you're looking forward to that. You guys are drinking the Kool-Aid. You're not here with us right now, but you're here in spirit. And honestly, this is going to be a fun weekend of football. I said that with college football, but I'm going to say that with the NFL. It's going to be a great weekend. I can feel it.
I did look up that stat for Andy Dalton. He's actually marked 24th on the list of passing yards,
Wow.
38,511. Kirk Cousins is underneath him with 38,215. But he also has played it for a year less. So I think he's well on track to beat him. But, man, that's crazy. I didn't think, like, when you think, like, some of the best passers of all time, you do not think of Andy Dalton. But I mean, with that, I mean, Carson Palmer's on there as well. That's a very familiar name for us Bengals fans. He has 46,000. But he also played for 13 years. So, yeah, man, I didn't realize that until this weekend. That is a crazy list. But, you know, with of course, teams nowadays, we're used to everybody, you know, a lot of good rushing quarterbacks. So we don't really take time to think about, you know, even the ones who don't rush all the time, they're still great throwing quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Any other games that you think are going to be interesting? A couple of games that I'm interested to see how they run are the Rams and Colts, just because those are two teams that have been on and off this year. Same thing goes for the Patriots Cowboys. Will the Cowboys come back from their epic defeat from the Cardinals? And will the Patriots, you know, or will the Patriots defeat them? Another big one will be another great defense is the Cardinals 49ers. Are the Cardinals actually figuring it out how to beat a good defense, or was it just a fluke last
Buddy,
week? So I think
the 49ers. I look, I get why you think that, but this is just me personally. It might be a slaughter fest.
I agree.
Arizona,
I agree.
or Arizona, or wherever they're playing. Like, if the Cardinals let up less than like 30 points, that should be a moral victory, but that's still a loss. I don't see anyone stopping the 49ers except for injuries. That's about it. But folks, with all that being said, I'm your temporary host, Aaron Klinker, alongside my good buddy, the Phil Fatman. We have had so much fun here tonight talking sports with you guys, talking football, you know, just going on about whatever. And with all that being said, Phil's going to play us out, and you guys have a great rest of your night.